Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I decorate a Santa face cake. Now I made this one earlier in the week over on my Facebook page as a Facebook Live, so this version is just a little bit sped up for you. So I've started with a 7-inch round cake, and at first I was a bit indecisive about what shape I kind of wanted his beard to be, whether I wanted it to be round or a bit more angled. So I was just putting in small little cuts to work out the shape I wanted the face to be. Then once I'd done that, I cut through deeper. So it's kind of a bit pointy at the bottom of the face. And I'm just cutting 2 straight edges angled. And then 2 curves off the top. And then I'm also marking a curve for where I want the bottom of his cheeks to kind of come to where the top of his moustache and beard would go. I'm cutting a divot down where I want the eye line to be. So I want the eyes to be set back a little bit. Then I'm curving the top of the head slightly. And the same for the bottom of the beard. So just cut a little angle off the top of your cake. And what I'm going to do now is just remove a little bit where the mouth area is going to go. You could probably get away without removing that if you didn't want to. I'm going a little bit deeper where the eyes are. I know it looks a bit weird at the moment. And I'm just going to cover the whole thing in buttercream. Now, in the Facebook Live, everything kind of went wrong for me in this video. And I rushed through it and I didn't whip up my buttercream very well. So I made a chocolate buttercream. I didn't actually put a huge amount of cocoa powder in, so it doesn't look very chocolatey. And I didn't spend long enough, so it was also a bit firm, which made covering the whole thing in buttercream a nightmare. So I didn't even bother smoothing mine because it was just kind of pulling my cake apart. So we have to kind of smooth it under the fondant in this one. So I've just got like I think it's called peach colour, this one, fondant that's going to go across that with the strip for where his eyes are going to go and a little bit lower. And what I'm going to do, guys, is put links to everything that I've used below the video as well, so you can see what it is I've actually used. And we do sell most of the things in my shop as well, so most of the links are probably to my shop. So I've got some white fondant, and guys, you can go much thinner than this. Remember, because it was a Facebook Live, I did all this in a bit of a rush, and I didn't spend that time that I really needed to thin it out. So if you're doing it at home, go a bit thinner. And we just covered kind of the beard area. It needs to overlap over the peachy colour that we put on for his skin. I cut off any extra from around the board. I'm trying to feel roughly where that divot was that we cut out for the mouth, and we're going to push into that with the balling tool. And then what I want to do is mark where I cut the cheek area earlier. So it's going to be kind of a curve. So if you want to use like a circle cutter to get a nice rounded shape, that's probably a better way to do it than freehanding it like what I'd started doing. And we're going to cut through that curved line now. And apologies, my scruffy grey bits of hair in shot again. And I'm not going to worry too much about pressing it down yet because I want to put the pink on the cheeks, so I'm kind of lifting the white out the way while we put the pink dust on. So it is edible dust that we're brushing onto the cheeks. Once that's done, you see I can push the white fondant down a little bit more. I'm going to use some black fondant in the mouth. We're just going to push that in, squashing it down with the balling tool so it fills sort of that mouth area. And then I want a thin strip of the peachy colour to create a lip around sort of that bottom edge there. And then let's have a look at what size we want to go for our nose. So I was undecided whether I wanted it to be oval or whether a bit more shape. I've gone for a bit more shape, so it's kind of a bit more bulbous in the middle and smaller at each end. Add a bit of pink dust to the nose as well. And then I'm going to use the balling tool to press in where I want the eyes to go. So I'm going to put the eyes actually fairly close together on this one. And I need to fill them with white fondant now. So I need a ball of white fondant for each eye socket. Just gently pressing them in. Now I haven't used any edible glue or anything at this stage. If you want to though, if things aren't sticking, you can do. And then we've got a slightly smaller oval in black fondant that we're going to push into each eye. So squash it down flat when you push it in. And an even smaller ball of white that will go into each eye. So I'm just going to put a bit of a black line around the edge of the eye. And I've just taken a small piece. We've rolled it thin. Needs a point at both ends. And then I'm going to put it around the top edge of the eye. And let's texture the beard a bit now because it's looking quite plain. So I'm using the pointy end of my Dresden tool, or flower and leaf veining tool, I think this one's called. And let's just see if we can point the corner as well. So I've tried to pull the beard to a bit of a point. Can you see each side of the face? And then we've drawn the lines down to this little point at the bottom. And for the ears, I'm using some leftover peach fondant. We've rolled the ball, we've pushed the balling tool in the middle, and then we've cut it into 2 halves. We're going to put a bit of water on. I've also put a bit of pink dust on as well to make them a little bit pinkish, a little bit rouged. Just push them on Press them firmly, we don't want them to fall off. And then we're going to roll some red for the top of his head. So he doesn't have a huge amount of head, and I've rolled this way bigger than what I need. And I'm going to attach it to the cake and then fold it above the cake. So it's kind of hollow, this bit where the cake ends, but that's fine because it gives me the ability to kind of fold it so the hat looks like it's flopped around. Now, if you get a gap between the hat and the face, it's okay because we're going to cover it up with the white trim. Just make sure you've rolled your fondant long enough that it goes from each side of the head or each side of the hat. We're just going to add a little bit of white just in front of his ears at both sides, so it looks like he's got sideburns. Otherwise it looks a bit weird in front of the ears. And just trim that so it meets the right size, and just meets the board even, I should say. You can texture it if you want, so I'm just using a piping nozzle. Again, I'll put in the links which one it is that I'm using so you guys can see. But as well as a piping nozzle, you might just want to use some little nail scissors to texture it. Now, if you're using nail scissors, please don't use ones that you've used on your nails. Do use a nice clean pair. The pair that I have are just for cake decorating. So it just gives us a bit more texture on there. For his eyebrows, I'm going to go fairly chunky because it's cartoony. I am going over the top of the hat with these eyebrows. I know in real life they wouldn't, but I'm not going to see much of his eyebrows if I have them under the hat, and I wanted these nice big chunky eyebrows on there, so that's what we're doing. So some lines on there, so they've got a little bit of texture to them. And guys, if this is going a bit fast for you, don't forget you can still find the real time one where I'm making it live, although it won't be live anymore, but you can still watch that back over on my Facebook page. So we're just going to play around with the beard. It's kind of like two little carrot shapes. I've left them fairly chunky. Again, it's a lot of fondant, so you would probably want to pull some of this fondant off rather than just eating it. But you don't have to go as big as what I have done. It's absolutely fine if you decide not to. So the fatter bit of kind of that carrot shape goes under each nostril, and the thinner bit comes out to the edge. I've curled the edges upwards a little bit, and then we've added some lines with our Dresden tool. And I'm going to cover the board now. I cover the board in black, even though the board is black already. The reason that I do this is because obviously the board doesn't really need covering because it's a coloured board. But the reason is I want to add some more colour, but I also want to put some writing, and I'm going to use the sweet stamps where they press into fondant, so I won't be able to press them just into a board on its own. So I've put this strip of fondant around the outside edge, and it's just wrapped nicely around my cake. I cut off any extra that goes over the edge of the board. I'm actually using some of the sort of hint of blue, pearl nacre blue. I want it to look more like a night sky in the background, so you see it shows quite well on black fondant. It doesn't show as well on white fondant, doesn't this? So we'll dust that around the edge of the board. I'm concentrating more on the very edges because I want it to look darker as it comes in. From above, you don't see that as much. We want a large ball of white for the pom-pom. Now, you know, you might want to stick something in the middle of this. Like, you don't have to have it as solid fondant like what I did. We're texturing this, again, exactly the same as we did the fur trim. We use the piping nozzle, and then we'll use the scissors to go over and give it a little bit more texture. And I'm going to add these little snowflakes. Now, these are edible, but if they get too wet, they have a tendency to dissolve or kind of crinkle and curl up. So you don't want to use too much water when sticking these on. And then let's do some actual snowflakes as well in fondant. So roll your fondant nice and thin, and I'm just using a plunger cutter. This is the smallest plunger cutter that you get in the set, and this is the mini set as well that I'm using. And I've left a little bit of space for the letters. I don't have much space, so let's just write ho ho ho. So they are just hard plastic letters. You press them in and then you pull them out and it leaves an indentation. And then what we can do is, in that indentation, we can fill it with food colour. So I'm going to put some food colour in there. I'm actually going to use powders this time that I've mixed with some dipping solution, or you can use clear alcohol. So I used a sparkling white. Now the sparkling white has fairly big particles in it, and it kept blocking the little nozzle in my Easy Pour bottle. So I added a bit of white powder to that as well as the sparkling white. And then you just carefully drip it into the spaces that you've left from your letters. It's quite nice to use actually, that pouring bottle. And then any other snowflakes or anything else that you want to finish it off with. So that's it, that's this one finished. Don't forget you can see the full version that's played in real time over on my Facebook page, and we do them every Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. UK time. Hope you've liked this video. Please do check out my other Christmas YouTube videos. Thanks guys. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.